Paul Day, Spitfire pilot and Spitfire critic, climbs into a Messerschmitt for the first time.
Well, good grief. The overall impression is actually most discouraging. The canopy, the whole design of the canopy seems to be based on a Kaiser's helmet or an afterthought, or I really don't know what. The second immediate impression is just how unbelievably small it is. It is probably a good 25% less working room even than a Spitfire, which surprises me, given that I'm lightly built and didn't have that much room in a Spitfire. There is actually no room whatsoever, and in fact I could do with a lot more room at shoulder height here. There is quite considerable interference with the ability to move the stick left and right. It affects your ability to swivel round even without the canopy shut. Right, well, let's see what it's like with the lid down. Well, well, this certainly isn't for the squeamishly claustrophobic. Even with no helmet and with a relatively low seat cushion, head is already against the top of the canopy, so-called canopy. Fairly obviously, the first thing that takes you is just how little room. It is probably, it's a good 100% worse than the problem of turning round to look behind you in a Spitfire. The view forward, well, is almost all either Krupps of Essen or 2 inches of armoured glass. It's impossible to fly this aeroplane with the canopy open, which accounts for the provision of the sliding side windows, which is fine. However, as it has no side door either, then the consequences of crash landing coming to rest upside down are fatal, undoubtedly. Okay, let's do a bit more weightlifting on what is actually a very heavy canopy, which I wouldn't care to have drop on my head or wrestle with in a bailout situation, and take a look at what, to be fair to the aeroplane, are some features in the cockpit which I actually like. Starting on the left, the elevator trim wheel is perhaps a bit too big, but nicely positioned and businesslike. Throttle quadrant is nice, throttle friction is nice. It's all businesslike, well to hand, and of course that allows sufficient space for what is perhaps the best comparative feature cockpit-wise between the 109 and the Spit, in that the undercarriage controls are nicely to hand just in front of the throttle controls and do not require that one changes hands immediately after takeoff. Blind flying panel, given that it's not particularly familiar to me, looks okay, and I particularly like the artificial horizon. One can cage it and thereby keep it from damage, toppling during heavy maneuver, or possibly even fast directed afterwards. It's a much more businesslike instrument than Spitfires. There is then, of course, the breech of the cannon, which fires through the spinner, which seems to take up quite inordinate amounts of room. The engine gauges and fuel gauge, quite reasonably easy to read. But other than that, I must return to my previous verdict on it. It is unbelievably small, unbelievably cramped, and I certainly wouldn't care to go to war in it, given the knowledge that the opposition was equipped with a Spitfire. I think it's time.
I don't think it would be very easy to get out of a Spitfire. I could imagine this half door being pushed against you by the wind. In the Messerschmitt, it would be easy to abandon the plane because the force of the slipstream would help push you out. But luck also plays a part. The tailplane could easily hit you as you bailed out. But this is always a risk.